Under the clear blue sky, a person wearing a cone hat, riding on horseback, slowly walked forward. The horse's feet clicked on the ground. This person walked through a forest. The surrounding trees had only dry branches left. This person secretly thought, the sleeping dragon of Shanxi played the biggest role in the success of our war. He remembered what the old man in the tea shop had told him. He said that due to the help of the sleeping dragon of Shanxi, the Jin family of Taiyuan had an easy victory. So when the Hang Sword Mountain was pushed to the brink of disintegration, it's easy to understand. I just don't know what happened when the second young master, Li Xiaogun, and the sector leader Li Chionbek all died, and since the first young master who was supposed to succeed the crown died in the process bandit attack a few years ago. This old man picked up the white silver bar and touched it a few times, then said the words, the sleeping dragon of Shanxi? People outside have been constantly talking about this name. The sleeping dragon of Shanxi single-handedly resolved the most powerful force in the Hubei region, the 18th Legion of the Great Forest Army. A storyteller, with a big mole on his face, was in a small tea house talking about the forest army. He described him as a handsome son of heaven on earth, a righteous warrior who wouldn't forgive any bad guys. He then asked the people gathered around, do you want to know who that person is? He revealed that it was none other than the master of the Jin family, Jin Ti Kyung. A person wearing a cone-shaped hat, riding on a horse, thought about what he had just heard. He raised his hand to his forehead and smiled, though no one could tell what he was thinking. After a while, a gatekeeper suddenly shouted, stop. He blocked the person's horse and announced, I am the guardian of the province of Shanxi and also the gatekeeper of the great Jin family of Taiyua. I am Hyuk Mu Jin, the right-hand man of the sleeping dragon of Shanxi. Now, quickly tell me your name and the reason for your visit. Hearing Hu Jin's words, the person in the hat got a little angry. He gritted his teeth and cursed silently, but then he opened his mouth and said shut up and just open the damn door. In his room, Jin Ti Kyung was so excited he had his mouth wide open. Looking at his stats that had reached level 50, he happily exclaimed, I leveled up 13 levels in just one go. My combat power is also over 1000. I also received a new title. The family's disgrace has disappeared, haha. As long as I can, risking my life and fighting with the elders is worth it. He remembered the scary battle with the great elder and curled his mouth in admiration. But that old man was really terrible. How could a level 95 guy lose to me? What would it be like to fight him one-on-one? It probably wouldn't last more than a minute, but anyway, I survived. He checked his new title, which read Sleeping Dragon of Shanxi is top class. The effects included, increase all parameters by 10, increase combat power by 100. The text continued, your title is known all over the province of Shanxi. However, the world of Murim is extremely large and mysterious. You should not let your rank drop. After reading these lines, Jin Ti Kyung thought to himself, Sleeping Dragon of Shanxi, I remembered that in the real world, Goyang City is one punch away from death. Incheon City has a sea of blood. Isn't that your title? It must be like that. Remembering these names, he thought, probably because I'm not the strongest, but at least I know who I am. Nice, at least I'm stronger now. I will become the strongest person in this world and then return to the real world and then ask for a raise my pay. I probably have to log out when I reach Hunter rank B. No, I probably have to reach rank A to log out. While thinking endlessly, Jin Ti Kyung suddenly stopped. He jumped up from the bed, sweating, and shouted, wait. I think I'm forgetting something important right. Just as he said this, the room door was hit by a strong force and immediately broke, flying toward where he was sitting. A person slowly walked in. This person raised his voice and said, so it's you here. Jin Ti Kyung looked wearily at the person, completely unaware of who he was. The person who came was the person wearing the cone hat and riding the horse from before. Behind him, Mu Jin was filled with fear. Jin Ti Kyung pointed to the person and asked Mu Jin, who the hell is this guy? Mu Jin tried to suppress the fear in his heart and stammered, don't you recognize this person? Jin Ti Kyung asked in confusion, how the hell do I know? Who must it be? You brought him here. He glanced at the other person, feeling a bit annoyed. The other person then took off his cone hat. Jin Ti Kyung observed his movements and then silently evaluated. Dust covered his face, but he looked very young. His body was strong and had been trained hard. He was definitely a family member, martial arts. That's interesting. Maybe this guy heard my name so he wanted to come compete. Thinking so, Jin Ti Kyung slowly got out of bed. He muttered, I will show you how to be polite. Jin Ti Kyung quickly stood up. He used QI sense to see how strong his opponent was. A notification sounded, but the system could not confirm the current level of the other person. Jin Ti Kyung thought, I guess he's kinda strong? Wait, what? Wait a minute, his name. Jin Mu Young. By the time he saw the other person's name, Jin Mu Young's face had appeared clearly before Jin Ti Kyung's eyes. In the infirmary, Jin Wai Kyung asked, second brother, don't you remember him? Jin Ti Kyung shook his head and replied, no. Jin Wai Kyung continued, it's Jin Mu Kyung. He's 25 years old. He's a martial arts genius. He reached the highest level of spiritual magic at a very young age. Jin Ti Kyung, lying straight on the hospital bed with his body covered in scratches and bandages, weakly said, sounds cool, really, right? Jin Wai Kyung continued speaking, but I haven't seen him for a long time. He is now in a faraway place. Where is he? Jin Ti Kyung asked. Jin Wai Kyung replied, he is studying at a martial arts school in the province Hunan. I haven't seen him for 3 years. What kind of person is he? Jin Ti Kyung asked curiously. Jin Wai Kyung stroked his chin thoughtfully and said, well, I guess you can say he's kind. Although people often misunderstand him, since his eyes are cold, but I can assure you that he's a nice guy. Jin Taekyung asked to his brother, was he close with me? Jin Waikyung scratched his cheeks and nodded. Yes, I think you two are quite close, he said. He then stood up and added, you guys are definitely very close. Jin Taekyung remembered what his oldest brother had said when he returned home, and his eyes widened. Second brother, he exclaimed. Jin Mukyung, his second brother, slightly raised his eyebrows and watched him without saying a word. Jin Taekyung stood still and thought, I thought he was very far away. It would take a few weeks to come back. But he came back as quickly as the war had happened and ended. Seeing his cold face, Jin Taekyung immediately smiled gently. You know I'm just joking, right? Haha, he muttered. Jin Taekyung quickly walked towards Jin Mukyung, holding out his hand and squinting his eyes. It's been a while, second brother, he said. Jin Mukyung looked at his younger brother's outstretched hand, staying silent. A moment later, he reached out and shook his hand. It's been a long time, he replied. Jin Taekyung secretly thought, I don't know how long I have to be friendly with him. With that thought, he immediately asked, have you been doing well? Jin Mukyung nodded. It's okay. But little brother, yes? Jin Taekyung replied, baring his teeth. At that moment, he heard Jin Mukyung's cold voice. Isn't the way you talk to me unusual? As soon as he said this, Jin Taekyung's body was sent flying high by Jin Mukyung's force. Jin Taekyung had no idea what was happening. His body spun a few times in the air and then he quickly stabilized himself and landed on the ground. Seeing this, Jin Mukyung was slightly shocked. Jin Taekyung slowly stood up. Jin Taekyung slowly stood up and asked, I thought we used to be very close. So that's not true? Hearing this, Jin Mukyung laughed, raised his fist, and said, yes, we are very close. My fist and your body. Seeing this, Jin Taekyung remembered his oldest brother and silently cursed in his heart. So was I wrong to think that my stupid older brother was crazy about his youngest brother? At that moment, Jin Mukyung suddenly rushed in front of Jin Taekyung. It seems like my little brother has grown up a bit and still dares to lie in front of me, he said in a cold voice. This happened so suddenly that Jin Taekyung turned pale. Jin Mukyung swung his fist and punched his younger brother hard in the stomach.